Hello, welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 72 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 71 of A Game of Thrones. That's Cat 11.
And we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what's happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information that will help you, particularly if you're not reading along. How are you, McKelly?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm in a jolly Christmas spirit. Although I guess by the time our listeners hear this, it'll be the
new year.
Yeah. It'll be,
oh, no, it won't. Is that right?
It'll be right around there.
Right.
I'd have to look at a calendar to figure it out exactly. But
yeah. It
will definitely be post-Christmas.
Okay. So, you see the question
I
do.
I just
saw
saw
a question
it.
for you. Yeah. So, have you watched The Queen's Gambit?
I have. If you recall, I told you that you needed to watch The Queen's Gambit.
Oh.
On air.
So what connects The Queen's Gambit with your favourite Christmas movie and Game of Thrones?
Oh, it's got to be an actor. So who is in Queen's Gambit? I assume Christmas Vacation is what you're considering my favorite Christmas movie?
Oh no, different movie.
Oh, Love Actually. Love Actually. Is that what you're... Okay. That's my favorite start of the season Christmas movie.
You have favourite movies for the time of the season?
Yes.
I see.
Black Friday after Thanksgiving, I like to watch Love Actually. Christmas Eve, I like to watch Christmas Vacation. So...
Oh.
I'm a man of tradition, if nothing else.
See?
Okay, so Love Actually, Queen's Gambit, Game of Thrones. Who isn't in Love Actually? That's the... What famous actor isn't in Love Actually? That's the connection. That's the question there.
The tricky part for you is that when this person was in Love Actually, they weren't very famous. It was one of their very first roles.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, McKelly, I hope you edit this bit out, but I've actually forgotten. Since I posed this question, I'm now rushing off to look it up.
Well, I could guess anybody then.
I'll know if you're right or wrong, let me tell you.
I have no guess so far. We might be sitting here dead silence for 5 minutes while I think about this.
I know who it is. I mean, don't get me. I haven't completely forgotten. It's just I don't remember the actor's name.
Oh, that's
not funny. It's not funny.
I don't know. I can't think of who it could be.
Let me give you one extra clue then.
Yes.
In Love Actually, he was quite young.
The guy, the bull. What's his name? Liam Neeson's.
Yes, Liam Neeson's son. Yes, that's it.
I could think of his. What's his name? Do you know?
I don't know. I still haven't found it out. I can't figure out what to search on.
IMDb.
There's too many people in Game of Thrones.
Go to IMDb and look up Love. Well, if you go into IMDb and look up Love Actually, you'll be scrolling forever because there's so many famous people in that movie.
Exactly. And the same with Game of Thrones. So I'm looking for Queen's Gambit. That will do it. The Queen's Gambit is the one.
Yes, there you go.
Because he is. Do you know who he is? The actor's name is Thomas Brodie Sangster.
Okay.
And he
I
was
did not know that. In the Queen's Gambit, he was Benny Watts, the first guy who beats her. Oh,
the guy in the hat.
Yeah,
you remember?
Yeah.
Did you recognize him as who he was?
I do now.
Did you? When you were watching Queen's Gambit, did you recognize him from Game of Thrones?
No. Who's in Game of Thrones?
This is slightly future spoiler, but he was Reed.
Jojen Reed. Yes, you're right. Goodness, how
or
did
is
I
he
not think
Jojen
of that?
Reed? Yeah.
Yes, right.
And of course, he's Ferb or Phineas, whichever one. He's Phineas or Ferb.
Yes. It's all coming together now. Obviously, he was Jojen Reed.
Is it Jojen? Or I thought Jojen was the father. No, he's Jojen.
Yeah, Harlan Reed is the father.
Harlan Reed's the father. Yeah.
Yes, well done. I'm glad you managed to get the actor's name in there.
I know you like trivia for Christmas. So.
Yes, I do. I didn't do trivia this year. It's the first year I haven't done trivia since you bestowed such a gift on me back when I had that Christmas party like 10 years ago, and you brought you did a trivia for that party.
I haven't done mine yet either, but I've got time. I mean, because normally I do it at the New Year's party with my friends, which we're not having this year.
Right.
But we might get together online and do it then, so I may still do it.
Yeah, I have no need to. I have no one to put it together for, and it's such a time-consuming endeavor that I'm not going to do it just for fun. So
I think you work harder at it than I do. What will happen is an hour will present itself to me, and I'll be like, yeah, why not? And I'll rattle it off, and then you spend a lot more time and effort on yours.
I think that sums the two of us up a lot. Like, you can put together really good things very fast. I have to do things so deliberately and methodically. I have to make sure everything is perfect. So, yeah, that sums us up pretty well, I think.
This is now going to sound extremely immodest, but that just reminded me of what Nick Cave, one of my favourite pop stars, said about the music writing, songwriting process. He was talking about how he's good at it. He said, I'm not, so modest that I don't think I'm good at it. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I was good at it. He said, but it's labor. I mean, I have to work at that thing, you see. And then he tells the story of Paul McCartney waking up with the song "Let It Be" in his head, and he dreamt it. And he's like, "Come on, that's not fair." I'm toiling here, and that guy just dreams up the greatest song ever.
Yeah, I guess when you got a gift, you got a gift.
Yeah. All right, let's get down to business.
All right.
Unless you had something else.
No.
I didn't mean to cut you off in your prime there. Down to business with a quick recap of what Catelyn Stark was up to last time we saw her. Last we saw her, she was in the Whispering Woods, where she heard but didn't really see Robb and the Northern Army just about defeat and capture Jamie Lannister. Since then, we've learned that they've routed Jamie's army, freed her brother Edmure, and lifted the siege of Riverrun. All right, McKelly, why don't we give them the summary?
We can do that. Cat, Robb, and the rest of the Northerners have arrived at Riverrun. Since the last time we saw this crew, they've learned of Ned's death. Obviously, all are heartbroken and angry. Immediately upon arrival in the castle, Cat is greeted by her brother Edmure. He takes her to their father Hoster, but first warns her that Hoster won't be with them long. Hoster is bedridden and in a lot of pain. He says he sleeps most of the days, with dream wine and milk of the poppy, but he wanted to be awake when she arrived.
Catelyn is mad at Edmure for not sending for her earlier, but Lord Hoster had forbade it, lest the news bring succour to their enemies. Cat actually blames herself at this point for taking Tyrion, something that McKelly and I have done several times over the course of the last few months. She tells her father that she'll bring Robb, who Hoster has always thought has his eyes, and she offers to bring Brynden too. Hoster is less impressed with the revelation that his brother is in town, and merely asks if Lysa has come along as well. Cat tells him no, that she's cowering in the Vale, and asks if he will see both Robb and Brynden.
I like the way you have it written there. She tells her father that she'll bring Robb, who has Hoster's eyes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, immediately. I want them back in my head.
Please, quickly. He did say he wasn't feeling well. I guess that goes along with it. Anyway. Has he wed yet? Asks Hoster in regards to his brother Brynden. No, nor will he ever, replies Cat. Hoster bemoans that Brynden did not marry Bethany Redwine, as his brother and lord commanded him. He spat on the Redwines. He spat on me. Hoster tells Cat to send his brother later. He's too sick to fight. Cat relays this message to Brynden, who thinks that Hoster will moan at him about the Redwine girl from his funeral pyre.
Cat goes to the Great Hall where Robb is supposed to be found to see Theon bragging to the Riverrun denizens of exploits in the Whispering Woods. She interrupts to ask where Robb is and is pointed in the direction of the Godswood. She finds Robb and his crew there praying. She waits and remembers kissing Peter Baelish in this very place, but they were so young it was more of a game than romance, at least to Cat and to Lysa. Cat gets wistful and wonders if Robb has ever kissed a girl.
When the prayers end, Cat tells Robb to visit Hoster, but he says that they must meet first. Renly Baratheon has wed Margery Tyrell and claimed the throne. The lords of Riverlands and North gather. Various ideas are mooted. March on Tywin at Harrenhal. March on loosely defended Casterly Rock. Stay put and cut off Tywin's supply lines, or wait on the sidelines until the winter is clear. Thank you, Mr. Frey. Robb simply states, Renly is not the king. Mark Piper argues that supporting Renly is the best way to bring down the Lannisters.
Robb disagrees, but admits he does not know what to do. Sir Steveran Frey suggests a truce with Tywin, to much disgust, but Cat latches onto the idea. Why not peace? We went to war to protect the Riverlands and to free Ned. One is done, and the other is forever beyond us. Brynden gently disagrees. Peace, sure, but only on the right terms. The Greatjohn Umber cuts the Gordian knot. None of these pretenders is a true king to the north. The knee was only bent to the dragons, and they are gone. We should have our own king in the north, and all agree, pointing to Robb Stark.
And so we've got 3 kings.
Yes, or 4 if you count Stannis.
Yeah.
I mean, Stannis has not announced, but
Right.
he's a much more legitimate claimant to the throne than Renly,
Yes.
who has claimed the throne. So,
In fact, Stannis is the only one who is the true heir to the throne, and he's the only one that hasn't officially announced his candidacy yet.
well, actually, if you're going by lineage, you could even say that Daenerys Targaryen is the only true heir.
Well, yes, that is.
So that would be number 5 on this list.
She's busy. She hasn't gotten
Yes,
a
true.
chance to get her campaign in order yet.
So this is very rousing. The end of this, I don't think we did it quite justice. The end of this chapter,
Right.
You know, was as
Yes.
all the lords sort of like rise up and say, "The king in the north, the king in the north."
Yes, and Hoster's steward comes down and says, "Shh."
He hasn't had enough milk of the puppy.
Keep your voices down. Yes, it is very rousing. It's very exciting. I'm sure I can't exactly recall the all the details of the scene in the TV show, but I believe that was rousing as well.
Mm-hmm. Twas.
So we start off with Titus Blackwood standing, well, it's Edmure standing at the top of the stairs waiting for the boats to come in, and he's standing with Titus Blackwood. And Cat thinks about the fact that it was Titus Blackwood that rescued Edmure when he was held captive by the Lannisters. And so just a quick reminder about that. When the Lannister force made a shield wall to defend against Robb, Riverrun then launched rocks out at them to break up the wall, and then Titus Blackwood led a party out to rescue Edmure. And Titus Blackwood was also in the battle under the walls of Riverrun against Jamie, where Edmure was taken hostage, and then he led the remaining forces back into Riverrun. So he was on both ends of the captive situation for Edmure.
Yeah, so as Cat arrives in the boat, Theon is abnormally chivalrous. He jumps out, gets his own feet wet, helps her to step onto dry land. We've wondered at their dynamic a couple of times, yeah. He was 10 years old when he was taken as a ward to Winterfell. He's around 19 now. So she's the closest thing he's ever had to a mother, really, at least that he remembers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I wonder, she seems a little frosty towards him generally, but much less frosty than she is to Jon Snow.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if in the absence of Jon Snow she would treat him badly, but because of Jon she gives him a little bit more leeway and she's a little bit fonder of him than she otherwise would have been.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that he is known to make rash decisions, and I think she's fully aware of that and thinks he's a bit of a hothead. But she seems to trust him because she divulged her thoughts on the Lannister involvement in Bran's fall and then the subsequent attack, and then about her leaving Winterfell with him in the room, which seemed like a big deal at the time, but then it turned out she was telling everyone she met about all those details. So maybe it's less of a big deal than we thought it was.
There were people in Lannister cloaks she was telling about this.
He was also the first when she arrived at Moat Cailin and walked into the room with Robb and his lord. He was the first to come up and kneel and kiss her hand, I think it was. So
I think by nature he's somewhat bawdy and irreverent, but I think by upbringing he's learned to be, sort of like overtly courteous to the people he needs to be courteous to,
Right.
Yeah. But of course, being practically his mother, she's seen the other side of him too. And I think also, given that he's a few years older than Robb, she probably wishes he was a better influence, because I'm sure Robb has looked up to him over the years.
Yeah.
And that he is, a little bit of a roister isn't great. I mean, I think she would probably have rather him turn out to be studious and scholarly and,
maybe a lot like Jon might be.
Jon Snow, yeah.
Yeah, but he's definitely, he seems to be Robb's right-hand man. He's with him pretty much at all times.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
But one thing I noticed, actually, thinking back on this as we were talking about Theon, was I looked back on the two of his most recent pronouncements, and one of them was that they should lay siege to the twins, which
Right.
looks like a terrible idea, given that it's the twins, which is probably the most defensible castle in Westeros, unless you happen to have two armies.
Right. Which they didn't.
Which they definitely did not. And that's a pretty dumb idea. But his second one was to execute Jamie Lannister, which is an even dumber idea.
Right, yeah.
So, so those who doubt Theon might have some grounds for their doubts.
I believe he also wanted Robb to kill Osha in that chapter where Bran chapter. And he was like, no, I'm going to take her in and question her. So he's known for his impulsiveness, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, so Cat finds out that, as she feared, that her father is dying. And she had feared that Hoster was ill since she got that letter in the Eyrie in the chapter with the duel between Bronn and Ser Vardis Egen. And what made her concerned was it was Edmure saying that he was making all these battle plans for the Riverlands, and she was wondering, why is my brother doing this and not my father? That's unnerving. And she's gotten no reassurance since then that no, he's fine. So she got what she feared. He's dying.
Yeah. How old do we think Hoster is? Around 70, something like that?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I mean, we figure Cat is late 30s-ish. So, yeah, that it might be. Maybe somewhere between 60 and 70s-ish. Yeah.
It's going to be a bit galling when you see Walder Frey sort of in his 90s, still going strong, so you come home to your own father and he's dying.
Yeah, true.
So it seems that Cat hasn't seen her father since Robb's birth.
Yeah. Right.
So, but Robb was born in Riverrun, which was interesting. I don't think I remembered that Robb was born here.
Yeah, they were married in Riverrun, and then for like 2 weeks later, Ned rode off to war, and then she had Robb, and then went north to Winterfell. Yeah, definitely. See, if it seems that way. It's not specifically stated, but it does seem that way. She mentions the last she saw her father, he had brown hair and beard with streaks of gray, and now it's completely white. Now that just means she hasn't seen him in a long time, I guess. But then him saying Robb has his eyes makes it seem like he hasn't seen Robb since he was a baby, because you might say, oh, last time I saw him, he was, this big, or he was just a little boy or something. Usually that's something you say about a baby. He has my eyes. So it's possible she could have returned to Riverrun without Robb, I guess, but it just seems
given how many children she spat out between these two moments in time, she probably hasn't had the sort of window of opportunity.
Oh, maybe.
either been the mother to a very small child or pregnant with the next one.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. Yeah, because I was thinking, like she's had 15 years. It's not that far from Winterfell to Riverrun. During years of peace, she might have made a leisurely stroll down there, but I guess not. But you're right. Yeah, she's had a string of babies, and Rickon was 3 when she left, so hasn't been a whole lot of opportunity. And then Hoster says when she first, comes out onto the balcony where Hoster is laying, he says, "I watched for you," and that's in reference to he used to ask her to do that. He's say, "Watch for me, little cat," when he would leave. She mentioned that in the chapter with the battle at the Whispering Wood when she was thinking about all the men that have made her wait in her life, including Hoster. So that was just It
was a sweet moment, actually, and it was nicely done. Even for someone with my attention span, it rang the bell. I sort of saw it coming back around.
Right.
The reversal of roles between the two of them.
I watched for you. Yes.
So, one thing that definitely comes up in this conversation with between Cat and Hoster is the smouldering animosity still between Hoster and Brynden.
Right.
Which you remember, he left Riverrun as soon as Lysa and Cat were married.
Yep, he went to go with Lysa to be the Knight of the Gate.
Yeah, and Hoster, although, I think Hoster's acutely aware that he's on his deathbed, he's clearly not ready to build any bridges with his brother. He's, this whatever this slight is, it runs very deep for Hoster, at least.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. You'd think you might be like, okay, I'm over it.
Right, yeah. So, it's basically been 16 years, right? That's roughly how long.
Yeah. They were married 15 at least. They were married at least 15 years ago because Robb's 15. They were married 2 weeks before Robb was conceived, so likely 16 years ago.
Yeah, but it seems that the animosity stems not from Brynden leaving necessarily, but from the fact that Brynden isn't married. That seems to be the tripping up point, because the first question that Hoster asks when Cat says that Brynden's here too is he married yet?
Right. Yeah. He seems to be fixated on this, the whole marriage thing. Anybody? Has
he
married anybody? He says.
Yeah, and so that got me thinking: is Brynden Tully gay? Is that what the underlying story is here?
Yeah. Right.
Just to give you I'm not sure. There's no clear evidence here. No. But when I tried to Google "is Brynden Tully gay," when I typed in "is Brynden Tully," Google auto-filled in "gay."
Okay.
And
so there's a lot of people wondering this.
I'm not the first person to have this thought.
Yeah.
And specifically, it's the fact that Cat replies, "No, he's not, and he never will."
Right. Yes.
And to me, that part just smacks of what on earth could it possibly be that fundamentally means that this man will never marry? And certainly being gay is one of them. But the other one, of course, and I saw this, I looked on a few threads, was that he had some great love in his life who he lost.
Sure. Yeah.
And some speculate that it might even be Catelyn's own mother.
Right.
That
Manisha Went.
He loved her. Exactly. Thank you. Look at you with the knowledge.
Manisha Went is, she's from Harrenhal. So.
Yes, it went.
We must be some way related to her as ghosts of Harrenhal.
but I tried to look for evidence of this, of feelings between Brynden and Manisha, and all I could find really was that he said he's fond of Cat, and he said she looks a bit like her.
It's a little weak.
Exactly. I was thinking how fond I am of my nephew and how he looks like my brother-in-law. This is not a profession of love for my brother-in-law, let me be clear.
That's funny. Yeah, that's some weak evidence right there. But you're right. But the general concept makes sense. If he had a great love that no one else could hold a candle to this person, that would be one of the options. So one of the options why you might never marry again.
But specifically, the animosity stems from Hoster told Brynden to marry a red wine. What was the name?
Brittany.
I know.
I don't know.
Brittany.
Bethany. Bethany red wine.
Bethany.
Not
That's
Brittany.
Right. Bethany.
Bethany red wine.
Bethany red wine. And Brynden refused. Now, why, we don't know, but he absolutely refused. And then several other marriages were proposed for Brynden. And obviously, as the younger brother of the Lord of the Riverlands, he was a catch, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. Certainly.
The blackfish was a catch. And so obviously, it would be important for Hoster to be able to marry him to who he wanted to cement an alliance that he wanted to cement. And Brynden's refusal to do that could certainly cause a problem with Hoster. But why was Brynden refusing? I mean, there's one argument to say he just bucks against authority and doesn't want to be told what to do. But
right.
if you buck against authority and don't want to be told what to do, marry who you want to marry.
Right. Yes.
Don't live the monastic life because of it, you know. So there's something here. I tell you.
I like how he mentions in passing that Walder Frey offered one of 3 daughters. I like how Walder always offers up multiple daughters. Your choice. Dealer's choice. Pick a daughter, any daughter.
And so the thing is, if it is purely stubbornness on Brynden's part, I just think that would be finite, that would reach its limit. You know, you'd bump into the right girl eventually and you'd be like, Hoster's not around, you know, I'll just marry this one, you know. Anyway, just a thought.
No, it's a very interesting situation there, because there's something preventing him from marrying, because Cat seems pretty sure it's not going to happen. So
right, and for me, that's the bit that points to him being gay. To me, is the fact that she's so sure that he won't marry. Right. If it was purely he just didn't want to marry the person you wanted him to, there's nothing to stop him marrying. But she was absolutely adamant that he was never going to marry, and that to me suggests there's some reason, you know.
Yep.
Just a change of pace and change of subject here. As Cat comes in, they go past a water wheel, and I was just curious, why does Riverrun have a water wheel?
I don't know the answer to that.
so it got me thinking, what are water wheels for? And of course, I think can you answer that, McKelly? What's the primary use of a water wheel?
They're for generating energy, aren't they?
Right. Well, yes. Go on. I'll allow it.
That's what I got. Generate electricity or some type of energy.
That's what I thought you were going to go with, electricity. But no, generally speaking, they were for milling. They would like turn pounding, a millstone. Yeah. Exactly. Or hammering steel. They would also be used for that. But I just thought, would they have it in this castle? I mean, obviously they were on the water, so it was available. I just wondered if it was enough of an area where they would be bringing in wheat that they would need to mill, that it was worth it. I don't think it's a big steel area, so did they need the forges? It just feels like those kinds of things would be more sort of localized, small towns on the rivers for doing that. And I just wondered if there was a point to this water wheel.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really come up with anything, to be honest.
Make solid points there.
But what I did find out is that you can make water wheels that are horribly inefficient, but you can make them very efficient.
Okay.
And it is fascinating, the difference between them. When you think of a water wheel, how do you think of the water flowing?
So I imagine the water comes in, and the current of the water moves the wheel.
So it's just flowing underneath the water wheel and just turning it like that?
Yes.
That's the most inefficient water wheel you can have. What you want, McKelly, you amateur water wheel designer, you.
Apparently so.
is you want the water coming in the top.
So like a waterfall.
Like a waterfall, and pushing it down as it goes.
Yes, like it much more efficient. Yes, it would spin much faster that way.
Yes, exactly. That'll help. But I still don't really know why Riverrun has one, and I'm very curious to know.
Just because they could. They did it because they could.
They're all there with Christmas lights in their rooms, and they're like, look at us! We've got a water wheel.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghosts Harrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. So, after Cat leaves Hoster, and she goes and tells Brynden that Hoster said he'll see you later, but he doesn't want to fight anymore, but he's too tired to meet right now. And then she makes her way out into the Godswood, and Robb and some of the other lords are kneeling before the weirwood, praying. And she notices that Titus Blackwood is out there, and that it's a rare thing that the Blackwoods, who are not from the north, they're Riverland. The Blackwoods are a Riverland house, that they worship the old gods, which is unusual. So it's actually, I know in our background we're going to discuss the Blackwoods and the Brackens, and the fact that they worship different gods plays into some of their beef a bit.
Oh yeah, I didn't really mention that. Remind me to talk about that as we go.
Okay.
Because you're absolutely right. That I should have mentioned that. So Kat's reminded, while she's sort of standing there watching them pray, because she doesn't really believe in the old gods particularly, so she just tolerates all this. She remembers her and Lysa kissing Peter Baelish, but they were talking about she talked about the ages, and Peter was only the age of like Bran, I think, so like 8 years old.
Because she was about 13. She said she was Sansa's age, and she said that Lysa was younger than Arya, I think, and Peter younger still, so he must have been 7 to 9-ish.
Yeah. And so, and for the girls, it was just a game, but thinking about how Peter Baelish feels about Cat Stark, you can feel that perhaps for him it was something more than that.
Right,
you know?
Yes. It was the start of something more, possibly.
Yeah.
And then she wonders if Robb has kissed a girl. She's like, he's killed a man in battle. You know, he's leading this army. Has he kissed a girl yet? And she's like, man, I sure hope so. And if you remember back to that Bran chapter where they got caught in the Wolfswoods by Osha and the other Night's Watch deserters and wildlings, Theon, on the ride out through the winter town outside of Winterfell, Theon felt free to tell Robb stories of his adventures with some of the girls in that town. And he did it in front of Bran. And Robb said, not now, not in front of Bran, not, yuck, girls have cooties. So it seems like it might be the kind of story that he and Theon might have shared with each other. So
yeah, but again, I'm feeling that might be Theon doing the sharing and Robb doing the...
True. Yeah, there's the
4
4 year.
I wish I was involved on that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's the 4 year age difference that that would separate them. But in a little bit, Cat when they're having their war council and Cat is really kind of pushing for peace, she says to Robb, I want you to live your life. I want you to kiss a girl and father children. And I could just see 15-year-old Robb's face getting red as he's sitting there around with all his lords that owe fealty to him around. He's like, Mom, you're embarrassing me in front of my friends.
I want you to stop wetting the bed.
Go make me some pizza rolls and leave me alone.
So after the prayers, they convene a war council. Robb says he'd like to go visit his grandfather, but he's too busy. He's got to have this war council. There are a bunch of lords of both the Riverlands and the North present. So let's just go through the people who we're not that familiar with from the Riverlands. So Carol Vance is there. We met him before in the throne room. He was raiding the Lannister lands with Mark Piper. He's now Lord Vance, right?
Yeah.
Because his father was killed at Golden Tooth.
Correct.
At the outset of all these hostilities.
Yeah. And then we've got Mark Piper. He's basically in the same boat that Carol Vance was in. He was in the throne room when he was one of the knights that came to Ned to complain about Gregor Clegane's raiding of the Riverlands. He is still Sir Mark Piper because his father Clement is still the Lord of Pink Maiden. Although the mountain burned the Pipers out of Pink Maiden, Kevin told Tyrion that a few Tyrion chapters ago.
So Clement in the wind somewhere.
I guess so,
Whereabouts
Surprised
unknown,
he's not
right,
here
yeah.
because a lot of the other lords who've had their places burned down are here.
So Raymond Derry's son, Lyman, is there. Father Raymond was killed by Gregor Clegane's ambush in the Battle of the Mummers Ford. Raymond Derry was part of Beric Dondarrion's group who've been bothering the Tywin's army.
Yes, right. Then we get Jonas Bracken. Gregor Clegane burned out Stonehenge, which is where the Brackens hail from, and they have a feud with the Blackwoods. And if you recall, way back at the Inn at the Crossroads, when Cat took Tyrion hostage, 3 of the men at arms were Bracken men. They were the ones that had the Larry, Moe, and Curly Three Stooges names. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, yeah. I remember now. Yeah.
They were Bracken men.
As mentioned, Titus Blackwood was there. He believes in the old gods and doesn't like Brackens.
That's right. Galbert Glover was there. He is a Northern Lord. He's been with Robb since Winterfell, and way back when Cat was in King's Landing and showed Ned the dagger, Ned asked Cat to have Galbert Glover send 100 archers to Moat Cailin, as well as Helman Tallheart. Remember, he gave her some instructions to prepare the North in case the Lannisters retaliated, and that was one of the instructions that he gave her, which she did not carry out.
Also from the north, we have Mage Mormont. She's the Lady of Bear Island, sister to Gior, aunt to Jorah. She has 5 daughters who all fight, including Daisy, who's here with them.
Yep. And last, we've got Richard Karstark, and he lost 2 sons in the Battle of the Whispering Wood to Jamie. Like, Jamie himself took out both of his 2 younger sons, and he's worried because he's grieving heavily over the loss of his 2 younger sons, and he hasn't heard anything about his older son, who we know was captured by the Lannister army in the battle on the Greed Fork in Roose Bolton's army.
Right, yeah, so Tywin's got him.
Yeah. We also get news about Roose Bolton that he's reformed the other northern host, the one on the east side of the Green Fork. And it's also mentioned that Helman Tallheart and Walder Frey hold the twins. And if you're wondering why Helman Tallheart is holding the twins, it's because Robb left Tallheart at the twins with 400 archers and swordsmen to keep Walder Frey honest.
So this group of lords of both the North and the Riverlands discuss the various options that are available to them. They could hold in Riverrun and cut off Tywin's supply lines. They could attack Tywin at Harrenhal. They could withdraw. It's all over. Or they could sue for peace in some way. But those are kind of rough on the Riverlands because the Riverlands are still being attacked by Gregor Clegane and the other groups. That's right. Yes, who are causing devastation wherever they go. Attacking Harrenhal has some merits. Tywin has retreated there, or is in the process of retreating there. It keeps Tywin's troops locked away, so they can't help any other Lannister fronts in this sort of kingdom-wide war. Sieges can certainly take a while. The rest of the realm is not going to halt while that's going on. You could besiege them just to inconvenience them. That's the one thing that it could do.
Right.
And it would also sort of cut off Gregor Clegane from Tywin. So maybe Gregor gives up or runs out of steam or something, but I'm not thinking that's going to happen.
Pure evil rarely runs out of steam, I think.
Yeah.
So then the next option that's floated out there is attack Casterly Rock, because Casterly Rock has been depleted because they have a big army out in the field right now. Again, this has merit. Taking the fight to the Lannisters' home certainly has some merit to it. But also, again, you're going to have to siege a castle, which is a time-consuming endeavor. And if you're over in the Westerlands, sieging Casterly Rock, then Tywin's army is kind of freed up to move about the Riverlands or wherever else they want to go.
Yeah.
Now,
of course, what I would say about that, actually, and thinking about both of those options, you really need to, if you're going to go and attack Castle Rock, you really need to keep Tywin in place. So you really need to besiege both places.
Right,
and
that's the way you'd have to do it.
Harrenhal is so huge that if you didn't take your whole army there,
Yeah.
it'd be hard to surround with enough of a force that if Tywin didn't want to punch his way out, he couldn't.
Right,
know?
that is the key. Because otherwise you'd think you could leave a token force to keep them hemmed in at Harrenhal.
Right.
But they have a big army inside Harrenhal right now, and Harrenhal's big enough to fit that army.
And they'll be getting ravens, and the ravens will be saying, hey, we need your help down here because of the news that they learned here, which is that Renly Baratheon has claimed the throne. I mean, that could mean Tywin changes his direction,
Yeah.
Staying in Riverrun, it's got some merit. I mean, certainly recuperate. You can stay protected by Riverrun's walls. Tywin, it blocks the supply lines. Tywin can't refresh his troops. But it's not doing anything to end the Lannisters' threat once and for all. I mean, Tywin licks his wounds in Harrenhal and then goes wherever he wants, you know?
You gotta strike while the iron's hot if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And you have to imagine that if you're just sitting in Riverrun, recuperating and cutting off the supply line, that Tywin would use that time wisely to improve his position. He's not going to just sit
in
there
some
and be
way,
like,
right?
Poof.
Yeah.
Boy, we got a lot of time to kill. What do you want to do?
Yeah. So of course, one of the big topics here is Renly claiming the throne. Now, Renly's the only thing going for Renly's claim to the throne is that he's not Joffrey Baratheon.
Right.
He doesn't really have a leg
because otherwise he has no claim to the throne at all.
Exactly. But given that he's not Joffrey Baratheon and he has claimed the throne, he seems like a good option right now.
Right. But Robb seems to really struggle with what to do about the two king situation, and he kind of talks in circles about them. He talks of treason if backing Renly, because he says Joffrey is the true king. He's Robert Baratheon's true heir, but then openly says he plans to kill Joffrey, which feels pretty treasonous to me. And then he goes back to that Joffrey killed his father, which makes him evil, but us fighting against him makes us traitors. So he's really struggling with how to wrap his head around proceeding from here.
Yeah. And this brought something home to me, which I think I'd forgotten, that they don't know what Ned knew.
It doesn't seem like it. It certainly doesn't.
Because there would be no debate here, or at least there'd be no debate in favor of Joffrey. I mean, there might be debate between Renly and Stannis, but it would be like Joffrey has zero claim to the throne if they knew what Ned knew.
Exactly. There's one line where Mark Piper says that Tommen is no less a Lannister than Joffrey, and I don't think that he means that they're entirely Lannister. I just think he means they are 50% Lannister, so I still will not respect them as a king. Yeah,
that's how I read it too. I did not read, we know these guys are 100% Lannister.
Right. That's I agree.
They seem to be unaware. So it's interesting that the Lannisters have done a good job of keeping a lid on that, because it felt like at the time of Ned's death, that story was about to explode across the realm.
Right.
But somehow they've kept it under wraps.
So far, anyway.
Because I mean, think about it. The kingdoms are basically in open rebellion anyway, without that news being widely known. If that news were widely known, who knows how many people would flip sides.
Yes, exactly. And now we get news that the Stormlands, at least Storm's End, has backed Renly's claim. And I guess we kind of expected that because Renly is the Lord of Storm's End. So you imagine he's going to back his own claim there. But
I'm envisioning some sort of like Westeros Gazette reporter here. Man on the street, what do you think of Renly's claim to the throne? Oh, I think my Lord Renly should be on the throne. But then again, he lives just down the road from me, so I would say that.
He has that big castle over there.
Yeah.
But it kind of seems wrong of the other lords of the Stormlands to back Renly, because they have. Everyone knows that's no secret that's the false claim, that their other lord, the older brother, has the legitimate claim to the throne if you're not going to respect Joffrey's claim to the throne. So you would think that the rest of the Stormlords would rally toward Stannis, be in more of the right. But I guess they're basing it off of Renly's made the claim. We haven't heard anything from Stannis yet, so we're going to rally behind Renly.
Which does make you think that Stannis is making if Stannis has any interest, he's making a colossal error in not making a vocal claim. Because if Stannis was first to claim, if Stannis was first out of the gates with, I claim the throne because Joffrey is not true Baratheon, then every Baratheon lord would rally to him. And Renly would have nothing. He would have kicked the stool out from underneath Renly. But as it is, Renly got there first, and you win. I mean, now you've created the situation where, of course, as a Baratheon loyalist, I want a Baratheon on the throne.
Right.
Renly says he's going to take it. I'm with him. Let's do it.
Yeah. I think maybe a part of it is that Renly is more likable as well. He's more...
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
If Stannis and Renly switched personalities...
Well, yeah. Stannis would be hands down the...
If Renly morbidly claimed the throne, with his grim face, everyone would be like, yeah, let's just wait for your brother to get back, yeah?
Right. Mark Piper mentions that Storm's End and Highgarden have backed Renly, and that Dorne is soon to follow. And that seems pretty legit, because there might be bad blood between Dorne and Storm's End and Highgarden because of border disputes and stuff like that, but the Martells hate the Lannisters with every passion of their being because of Elia Martell's murder and the murder of her children. That's Rhaegar Targaryen's wife and children.
Oh yeah, that particular thing. I mean, because the Martells have not been in this book at all.
Right.
I mean, they've been mentioned a couple of times, and no more than that. But it's like the scenery in a play. It's just there on the background. If you were making a play of this, the scenery would be Elia Martell being murdered by...
Right. Oh, yeah. It's very much a backdrop to the overall theme of the story. He also says that if Dorne rallies to Renly and the Arryns can bestir themselves to rally to Renly, that 6 of the great houses of the 7 kingdoms will be against the Rock. And that term is a little bit... It has mixed use, because sometimes they refer to the great houses.
The great houses, not the Rock, the great houses, yeah.
Yes. Sometimes they refer to the great houses as the 7 great houses. The Starks, the Arryns, the Tullys, the Lannisters, the Baratheons, the Martells, and the Tyrells.
You got it.
Sometimes they refer to those as the great houses, but other times they refer to just any prominent house as a great house. So kind of comes and goes. I'm not sure why it's done that way. I guess it's just the way it is. Sometimes it refers to one, sometimes it refers to the other.
The thing that's interesting to me about that is that I think Mark Piper's right. I think, suddenly you've got an almost overwhelming alliance of 6 of the 7 major houses against one.
Yeah.
And that's got to be unusual for most rebellions. You'd end up with a sort of a split between them, but here you've got a 6-1 sort of advantage. I wonder how much of a sort of betrayal Lysa not getting involved is here, because really it's only 5-1 because Lysa's not doing anything.
Exactly.
And then that 5-1 allows the sort of doubts to creep into people like Robb, because Robb is like, oh, you know what? I don't actually believe in this guy's claim. It's hard to say I should get involved in this, But if Lysa was there too, they'd be like, well, this is a golden opportunity to get rid of those lions,
Yeah.
Once and for all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. It does unified force. If they had the whole realm, then everyone's on the same page. But you're right. With that one house holding out, it does change the landscape a little bit.
Yeah.
And so Mark Piper says, I think it's Mark Piper that says this, that you've got 6 of the 7 great houses. That's what Renly offers. What does Stannis offer? What's he got going for him? And Robb's reply is the right. And Kat thinks it sounds eerily like his father, which it absolutely does.
Yes. No, I don't mind him voicing it, but I want you to sort of like have the moral ambiguity to be able to say, well, he does have the right, but I will say, I do like the idea of getting rid of the Lannisters.
Yes, exactly.
So Stever and Frey and Kat are the only ones who seem to be considering peace, because Stever and Frey because he's a Frey, and Kat because she doesn't want to lose anyone else to this conflict. Stever and his father would suggest caution, sit back and wait. Sounds about right. And he further suggests that with Renly arming, Tywin would welcome a truce to end the Riverlands War. Again, absolutely true.
Yeah, I agree.
And given that you've got all the trump cards at this point, you could get a truce on very good terms, I would imagine.
Yes, exactly. That right now, the Northern Army has the power over Tywin's army that's going to be held up here in Harrenhal. So if there's ever going to be an opportunity to sue for peace and get good terms that you want, now would be the time. But Rickard Karstark says to Kat, when she makes this long impassioned speech about peace, and it makes a lot of sense. And, you think maybe she's going to sway them. And when she's done, Rickard Karstark says, well, you're a woman. You're the gentler sex. Men have a need for vengeance. And Kat says, give me Cersei Lannister. I'll show you how gentle women are. I like that response. Yeah, she says, I'll trade the girls for Jamie straight up. And, we talked about this in the previous Tyrion chapter. And in that chapter, Adam Marbrand says that they would be stupid, they being the Northern Army, would be stupid to trade Jamie for Sansa because someone proposes it in that chapter. But he's not thinking like a parent whose children are hostage. I would make the same trade if it would get me my kids back. But on top of that, you could also, work on terms for to end the war, not just an exchange of prisoners and like, okay, let's exchange our prisoners and get back to fighting, but exchange our prisoners. Let's work out terms to bring this war to an end, because it's now become futile, this war.
Yeah.
One thing that Rickard Karstark says is, regardless of ransom, we must not give up the Kingslayer. And that's because the Kingslayer killed his two youngest children. And if you remember in that Whispering Wood chapter, Robb Stark had to have extra guards placed on Jamie for fear that Rickard Karstark might kill him if he can get close enough to him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it seems that only Kat and Stever and Frey have interest in peace here. Lots of people have lost things. The North has the upper hand right now, so there's two ways to go. One is to go for the jugular, and one is to get a peace that works for you. And it feels like there's too many military people here thinking, let's go for the jugular.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it feels like at least exploring options for peace is the logical step here. Because, as Kat points out, all the reasons we're fighting, that we came here to fight, are over. We came here because of Ned was taken hostage, he's gone. We came because Tywin was destroying the Riverlands. They're now stuck inside Harrenhal. So let's end this. Get what we want out of them and end the bloodshed.
Yeah, it actually feels like the right thing to do is actually to go to Harrenhal and besiege them, but besiege them with like an offer of parley, like
yeah.
Hey, come out and talk. We're here to besiege you. We'll stay for months if we have to, but there's a deal here that we can strike, I'm sure.
Yeah.
First of all, call off your attack dogs from the Riverlands. That would be a great first step.
Yep, step one.
Yeah. But all of this talk of all of these kings, it really is. I mean, the one thing I really like about this chapter is the logical conclusion that it reaches, which is Greatjohn Umber stands up and he says, look, Renly Baratheon means nothing to me. Joffrey Baratheon means nothing to me. These are just southern lords who don't know anything about the North.
Right. Yeah.
We've ruled ourselves for thousands of years. We've been part of the Seven Kingdoms for 300 years. And that was for one reason and one reason alone, and that was the dragons.
Yep.
Now the dragons are gone, and now we don't believe in any of these kings, right? So why bend our knee to any of them? Let's go back to where we were before. Let's have a king in the north. And
it got a little complicated when the Riverlords started, bending the knee to Robb as well, because the North is easy. They're separate off by themselves. You could definitely see making terms for them to be their own kingdom again.
Yeah.
If push comes to shove. The Riverlands are a little more complicated because they're like right in the heart of everything.
Right.
So,
for me, if I'm a Riverlands lord, I'm like, how does this benefit me in the slightest?
or doesn't.
The worst, this is actually a bad news for me, because these guys are just going to go off back to the north and live in their own separate kingdom. Right. We actually need their protection right now.
Yeah. I was envisioning, like, after this meeting, Robb's like, goes to the Riverlords, he's like, whew, that got intense, huh? Wow. We all got a little swept up in that whole thing. Emotions are running hot. And,
especially you Riverlords who were shouting, the king in the north. What you should be upstairs dragging Hoster out of his bed saying, the king of the rivers!
Right. Yeah, that's the other option here. If the north separates and the Riverlands separate, do we go back to pre-Targaryen era of, maybe not 100 kingdoms like they used to call it, but at least several independent kingdoms. One thing that made me laugh at the end of this chapter when the Greatjohn was giving his impassioned speech about the King of the North is he really doesn't seem to know his Westerosi geography, because he says Renly and Stannis Baratheon, they're not going to rule me from some flowery seat in Highgarden or Dorne. Like, they're not going to rule from either of those two places.
They might have to until they get rid of Joffrey, I suppose.
Maybe, yeah.
So to background, so we've mentioned it a couple of times, but the two of the great houses great houses with a small g of the Riverlands are House Bracken, whose seat is Stonehenge, and House Blackwood, whose seat is Raventree Hall. Both trace their bloodlines back to the First Men, and they have, I'm going to guess, the longest-serving feud of any two families in Westeros.
I believe that is correct.
The Brackens were kings who ruled the Red Fork back in the Age of Heroes, so thousands of years ago we're talking now, but they were usurped by their own vassals, the treacherous Blackwoods. At least that's what the Brackens would have you believe.
Right.
The Blackwoods claimed that they were the kings, and the Brackens were horse breeders who hired sellswords to usurp their Blackwood king lieges.
You got a he said, she said here.
Yes. They teamed up during the coming of the Andals, but were defeated, and they've had various truces and marriages over the centuries. They've even had half Bracken, half Blackwood bastards.
Okay.
But and occasionally this is papered over the crack, but eventually the animosity bubbles back up again. One of the more notorious instances was about 350 years ago when Harwin Hoare of the Iron Islands invaded the Riverlands. Agnes Blackwood rode out in force to repel the invasion, but she was betrayed by Lord Lothar Bracken, who attacked her force from behind. And that one probably rankles more than the ancient grudge, honestly.
Yeah, I think so.
As you mentioned, the Blackwoods still revere the old gods, whereas the Brackens have converted to the new gods. So this is one area where there's a little bit of religious intolerance, but really it's just the religion is just a backdrop to their
they just don't like
antipathy. Exactly. And throughout this chapter, Kat notices that every time a Blackwood or a Bracken speaks, the other side will contradict them in everything. With one exception, I noticed, which is the King of the North. The King of the North. They both agree on this.
Yeah, you'd think that whoever said it first, the other one would be like, Renly!
Or at least, what about Hoster Tully?
You're right.
So comparison with the television show, it's a fairly big deviation here. You never really get a sense that they're in Riverrun. You don't really see Riverrun. I mean, they're somewhere, but it doesn't tell you it's Riverrun. We don't meet Edmure or Hoster or Brynden, for that matter. None of those guys are in the first season of Game of Thrones. the King in the North scene barely features Cat. I think she is there, but she doesn't speak at all.
Oh. No impassioned speech for peace, then.
No. In fact, most of what we hear from her in the TV show is a conversation she has with Jamie Lannister, where some of her inner thoughts about getting the girls back, she voices them to Jamie.
Okay.
So quite well done, because it allows her inner voice to get an airing and also gives some screen time to Jamie, who basically has been missing for this whole book, really. I mean, we've hardly got to know him.
Since the attack on Ned and his men.
Yes.
I guess that's the last time you would have seen him in the TV show.
So yeah, I mean, otherwise, certainly it's very rousing when it ends with the King in the North,
Right. What was that? Obviously, we must be in episode 10 of the first season.
It's pretty much... It's very interesting, actually. As we get towards the end of the book, I'm seeing more and more how closely it's following the book. They're really, really close at this point. The only chapter left in the book now is a Daenerys chapter, and this comes right before that Daenerys chapter, and then that's the end of the first season.
Okay. So yeah, they really are sticking with the timeline.
Real close, yeah. The only things are the insertion of additional scenes. So Cat with Jamie was inserted. I mentioned last time Peter Baelish and Varys talking in front of the throne was inserted. And there was also a scene with Maester Pycelle with a prostitute.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
Remember that? And basically, he talks to her, and he's just a lusty old goat until he dresses to go out to a meeting, when he feigns being a crone again and sort of stumbles out the door. So in the TV show, they certainly are making it clear what they think of Pycelle. He's tricking everyone.
Yep.
So pedantry. I feel like, this is very minor, but I feel like the whole all of the questions they asked in this chapter, they dodged them by ending it with the King in the North.
Right.
Because that doesn't change the calculus at all. They just need to decide what they're going to do about Tywin Lannister. Crowning Robb does nothing to solve that decision. It just means Robb's even more in charge of that decision, and he doesn't know what to do.
I think the only way it changes things is what I think it's Rickard Karstark says after Greatjohn makes his pitch for Robb being King of the North. He says, "I'll have peace on those terms."
Right.
So maybe that's we'll have peace. We'll go have peace talks if Robb is King of the North. If we break away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So not even pale pedantry then. Nothing at all. But why did the Riverlands lords join in?
It was so exciting.
It was exciting. that it just felt like the scene would have been more funny to me, honestly, if half of the room erupted into King of the North, while the other half looked across like, my God, these heathens from the North. They're our guests, and they're here.
We got to get them back across the neck in a hurry here.
Why don't you go off being kings in the North, y'all? So, news and notes, what you got?
So we got an email from Robb and Andrea, and they wanted to know what our sigils would be. And
That's right.
I spent a lot of time thinking about mine. I finally came up with something, but I'm just not that creative. It took me a while, but I see you've yours is very specific. So
well, yeah. What happened was I was thinking about that while I was researching this chapter. I was looking at House Hoare, who came up because Agnes Blackwood was attacked by Lothar Bracken while she was trying to defend the Riverlands from Harwin Hoare.
Right.
House Hoare's sigil was very nice and very much appealed to me. It was 2 silver chains crossed, like in an X shape, creating 4 quadrants, and in each quadrant there was an object. And so I really liked this idea. And so mine is sort of mimicked on House Hoare. And so instead of chains, I'm going to have 2 strands of DNA.
Oh, for your PhD
for my
in chemistry.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And then House Hoare had a longship, a raven, a tree, and a cluster of grapes. I'm going to have a soccer ball,
Uh-huh.
a flagon of ale,
Right.
a chess piece, or actually a meeple, perhaps. For those who play board games, meeples are kind of like the sort of like generic token for board games.
Oh, yeah, that would be good
So,
for you.
A
Yeah,
little
yeah.
meeple, yeah. And then a constellation of stars. And I think that kind of covers the whole interest there.
Yeah,
So
it does. Well done. That is you.
sigil.
That's your sigil. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
I like
Not a lot left. Yeah.
Mine was not as sophisticated as yours. What I came up with was
Mine was extremely derivative, to be clear. I mean, I literally saw something that I liked, and I was like, I'll just copy that.
that's the way to do it. So what I came up with was a silver minivan, which is the minivan I've driven for the past 12 and a half years, on a split black and gold field with my family in the windows of the minivan and Penny in the back window. Maybe a microphone on the top of the minivan for all the time I spend on this podcast. and my words.
Oh, you came up with words too.
My words would be, the standard is the standard, which any self-respecting Steelers fan would know that's one of Mike Tomlin's favorite things to say, is the standard is the standard. So.
All right. That's good. I like it. So
I asked Stacy, I said, this was like 2 hours before we recorded, I still had nothing. I was like, when you think of me, what's my essence? What is my, like, what do I do? What am I? And she was like, when I think of you, I think of your family. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I was like, okay, what do I drive my family around in but my 12-year-old minivan? And so it all came together.
I do feel now a little bit embarrassed that I didn't think of my family.
Well, with the meeple, you play the games with them with the meeple.
I do. We were late recording tonight because I was playing board games with my family, so that's
right.
true.
See?
That is true. Somewhat begrudgingly, to be honest. They weren't exactly enjoying themselves, but hey.
Well, they were there. That's what matters.
So I do have to say, I will say, I think yours is a very good choice. The minivan is a good choice. Have you ever read The Golden Compass or the Philip Pullman books, His Dark Materials?
No, I know His Dark Materials. I'm aware of it, but I have not read it.
So one of the motifs in there is that people's soul is actually exterior to them and has the form of an animal. And you walk around and the animal sort of like trails around. And yeah. And I think they're called demons. And your demon would clearly be a minivan, just trundling behind you.
I have purchased a new car, but I still can't get rid of my minivan. It's in my driveway. I just can't part with her. Too much of my life has been spent in that minivan. So Rob and Andrea's sigil, they gave us theirs, is a bronze stag with bloody antlers and a pink butterfly on a green field with the words "Fly high, fly far," which are actually the words of House Tywin of the Stormlands. So, and they included a picture. They've had it done in, I think they've had it cross-stitched. So if you go into our email, you'll see the picture. They also said we're doing an amazing job, so thank you very much, Rob and Andrew.
Is their sigil split, or is it like there's a bronze stag with bloody antlers and butterflies flying around it?
So the butterfly is up the top portion, then the words are in the middle, and then the stag is underneath.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, this is better than ours.
And I can even see the Christmas tree in the reflection of their photo. So.
Oh, good. Be careful what you send him. He looks real careful. All right, we better put a line under this. It's gone on for hours.
Oh my gosh, this is a marathon episode here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the logic of all this is irrefutable. But has Robb actually done anything to deserve this, really? I mean, yes, he won the Battle of the Whispering Woods. He did lure Tywin into a bit of a trap by offering to sacrifice thousands of northern soldiers for no reason.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But other
very
than
lordly,
that,
I guess.
I guess, yes. He doesn't feel like he's really earned it, other than by being there at the right time,
Yeah. He is, I'm sure if this was Ned, they would have claimed, called Ned King in the North. He happens to be the Lord of Winterfell now at this particular time.
But Ned would be a great choice for that.
He would indeed.
Just not sure Robb is ready for this. He's not ready to be Lord of Winterfell.
He does seem to want to keep the Lannisters on the throne. At least he's very conflicted about the idea of Renly claiming himself as king with absolutely no claim. But of course, he doesn't want to keep Joffrey on the throne. He wants to put Tommen on the throne. So pulling away just makes sense. I mean, they don't want to kneel to a Lannister, whether they're a Lannister Baratheon or just a straight up Lannister.
Yeah. I will say, for most people, when they get moved up in their career, they have probably day one, most people sort of like, have a sort of gulp moment when they realize what's now expected of them. But I mean, most people rise to those challenges, or at least fake it.
Fake it till they make it.
Exactly. But can they get this freedom and spare the Riverlands as well?
Yeah, would that price be too high? If they came to Tywin and said, we're willing to call a truce here, you can keep Joffrey on the throne, but the North and the Riverlands both are pulling away. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Would that price be too steep?
I think the Lannisters would agree to it, and as soon as they've secured themselves on the Iron Throne, they would reinvade the Riverlands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Or maybe we're heading back to a pre-Targaryen era with a bunch of smaller kingdoms. I mean, like the Greatjohn said, we bent the knee to the dragons. The dragons are gone. Yeah. So is there really anyone that can hold this, these 7 kingdoms together anymore? Yeah.
All right. As always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube because McKelly works his socks off.
Well, I do what I can. If you like what we're doing, please consider going out and leaving us a 5-star rate and or a really nice review. It would really help us get the word out. We'd very much appreciate that. And King of the North.
King of the North. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.